G'day guys, this clip is taken from a 2-hour-long interview with Sam from the Worldwide Warhammer podcast, where we talk all things WTC and Team Australia. If you'd like to see the full interview, check out the links in the description below, and with that being said, let's get into it.
Look for the Blood God. We are live. Hello and welcome everybody to the Wide World of Warhammer. With me today is the captain of Team Australia, looking like a politician with his two Australian flags in the background. It's Dean Simbeck. How you doing, buddy?
G'day guys, g'day. Thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. No worries at all. It's been a little while. I was just trying to recount my memory when the last time I had you on. I think it was ANZTC, not this year, but the year before. So it's been a little while since we've been between.
It has been a while. It's been a hot minute. But we've all been very busy in that time, so I'm sure there's plenty of ground to cover.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've got a new jersey on, that's for sure. That's something we'll be definitely talking about a lot today. And so talk about, I guess, Team Australia as they were at the WTC. So I know prior to the WTC, we'd had lined up to try and have a chat, but unfortunately, life found another way, and that's okay on my end. So we couldn't line it up, but that is okay. So, but first things first, Dean, how are you doing? Have you recovered from the jet lag and all that jazz?
I don't think I have, to be honest. I mean, it's been a rough week for me, just with all of the things swamping back to me. All the things that I've been putting off until after WTC have all crashed on me at once. And on top of that, you've got the jet lag, and so it's been a rough week. I'm not going to lie, but I'll bounce back. It'll be fine.
That's it. Just a couple more mornings, a couple more days, and we'll get back to it. So I'm sure, did you have like a big long sleep as soon as you got home?
Well, I actually slept really well on the plane. Like, I sleep fantastic on the plane. So I got home and I was like, I feel fine. I feel perfectly, on time and all that sort of stuff. And then I woke up on the couch and I was like, when did I even fall asleep? I don't even remember going to sleep. Like, it just sort of hit me out of nowhere. And then since then, I've been off balance. So it's been an interesting one, that's for sure. Had a nice big long nap today at work when I was supposed to be working, because I was just like, I'm just zonked out. Went and had a lay down in the back of the car and just was like, yep, call me if you need me. I'll be in the car.
Oh, no. Well, hopefully those days are numbered from here on out. That there won't be any more of those going on. But I guess, so last time we were sort of chatting, so I talked to, obviously, Lockie, the big rig himself, and Jordan from WA about Team Australia. We're hoping to line up, I guess, about preparation. So I guess we just want to take you back. I know it seemed like eons ago, but what was sort of that last month of lead up for Team Australia into the WTC? So lists hadn't been revealed, and I guess your pods hadn't been revealed. So what can you just give us a sort of understanding of what that looks like from a Team Australia perspective of what you tried to do?
Well, we were, because Team Australia is quite separated, right? Like, we're not like a lot of the other nations that can attend where all of their players can physically get together with relative ease, right? We've got the challenge of having some people from Queensland, some people from New South Wales, some from Victoria, some from Western Australia, all of which, as you guys know, is, several hours on a plane and a very expensive trip. So we sort of strategically tried to make it so that we had clusters of people, which is why, like, you'll notice there was the WA guys. We had multiple WA guys and coaches in WA as well, so that they could sort of, workshop and practice together. And then, of course, we did multiple boot camps in the lead up to the event as well, so that we would have opportunities to get the entire team together, which was really important for team building. Because one of the things that we've experienced in the past is that, the Victorian lads will play against each other and we'll have one opinion of a faction, and the WA lads will play against each other, or the Queensland lads will play against each other, and they'll have a different idea of that faction. And it's only when we get together that we actually sort of blend those two ideas and come up with what ends up being the list we submit. So the big one for us was that we had a boot camp the week before we left. So instead of everybody flying from their home city over to, Europe and meeting together over there, we actually all flew to Melbourne and spent essentially an entire week together in Melbourne, and then flew together as a team over to Europe. And in that week, we got probably more prep and more work done than we had got in the previous several months combined. So that Melbourne boot camp was absolutely clutch. And that was after the lists were out. So we were really practicing specific matchups, and we were fine-tuning the way we were going to approach the pairings and that sort of stuff. But up until that point, it had been sort of we've selected the best players for a reason, and I gave them as much autonomy as I could so that they could come up with their own list based on the way they play the game and based on what they enjoy and what they think is powerful. And I just trusted that, outside of me going rogue with 30 Terminators, I trusted that people were going to bring, something that was a rough approximation of what would be generally considered a strong list.
Yeah, sure. That's obviously good to hear, having some faith and autonomy in your players. And we'll definitely be touching about the 30 Terminators later on, because that was definitely a recurring theme throughout your Risky Rollers vlogs and obviously in the lead up to the event. But I wanted to touch a bit about that boot camp. So what, for people on the outside looking in, what does that boot camp look like? So what was that sort of process? I know you said you did a lot of pairings practice and I guess matchup practice, but hearing obviously a bunch of the WTC reviews, like for example, Enter the Matrix and Stat Check, they said the Polish lads focus on Team USA for quite a bit of their prep. Is that a similar focus for Team Australia, or was it a different, more diversified field?
What we did this year is, because a lot of our team were brand new, right? We had, out of our 12 team members, only 2 of them have ever played in WTC before. So we were going in with what I think were relatively reasonable expectations. We weren't sitting there going, we need to make sure that we beat Poland, USA, England. We weren't viewing it through that lens. We were going, look, let's just smash our pod phase. Let's just make sure that we beat those teams. And then from there, we'll take it from there, right? So we actually only really did hardcore prep into the teams that were in our pod, which was Malta, Norway, and Italy. We basically went, let's make sure that we're good into them. And provided we're good into them, we'll reevaluate that night after the pod round is finished. We'll reevaluate and we'll look into the other teams then. I didn't want the team to spend too much time agonizing over like Poland's Marine list, because I was like, well, if we don't beat the pod, we're not going to verse Poland. So we would be wasting our time investigating those lists. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, maybe we should have spent a little bit more time looking at France and Poland, but we just had no idea on what the strength of the team was realistically going to look like. So I basically wanted to prioritize just the specifics of those rounds. But so that was one of the main things we did during the boot camp, is we pulled up all of their lists. We wanted to make sure we played into every one of them, so we all had an understanding of what they did, how they worked. We obviously still have time constraints, so not everybody got to play into everything, but we tried to make sure that, somebody pilot the Tyranids list and as many people watch that game as possible. So it's kind of like everybody playing it, because we get to see how it works. We get to see how it functions. We get to see the damage that it's going to do, those sorts of things. So that was the pods component of it. And then the other thing that we did is we basically found any instances where, for example, our Necron player might say that they're bad into World Eaters, but our World Eaters player says that they're bad into Necrons. Well, we go, well, one of you is wrong, right? Either that or there's something specific about your list that makes that matchup a problem. But generally speaking, if the 2 people disagree about how a faction matchup is likely to pan out, we want to practice that specific matchup. So that was the sort of the second order of operations, was let's get our pod under control. Let's make sure that we know exactly what we're doing there, come up with a plan on who's going to be put up, who's going to be picking what tables, mastering the missions that we're going to be playing during the pod phase, that sort of stuff. And then once we had that more under control and we're feeling confident and we're feeling happy, then it was like, okay, cool. Grey Knights into Thousand Suns. Let's play that 2 or 3 times and see if it's flippable. Is this something that it does go badly, or is it something that we can sort of manage? And that sort of stuff was the sort of second thing we worked on. And then of course there was a ton of just team building stuff, like Matt Morrisoli put on a big smoked pulled pork barbecue lunch for everyone, and we went out for dinner a couple of times, and we just made sure that everyone was, because obviously also a lot of our previous interactions with these players have been at the ANZTC, where they've been our adversaries, right? So there was a lot of work to be done in making sure that everyone was functioning as one team, as opposed to separate contingents, which is one of the challenges Australia has, because it's such a large, such a large landmass that
absolutely,
you kind of get factions forming. And I wanted to make sure that there was none of that happening on the team, and that we were all operating as a team. So there was a lot of just memes and banter and watching the Olympics together to get everybody in the spirit of representing Australia, and that sort of stuff was really important as well.
Oh, fantastic! Was there some imitations of Ray Gun and her breakdancing, like to see who's Australia's next best?
I actually didn't know anything about Ray Gun until we got back until we were over there in Europe, and I was like, "What is that? What is that?"
Well, good. She's definitely better breakdancer than me. I'll put my hand up and say for sure. So, look, I'm sure Australia's best athlete in Soli, and it sounds like Australia's next Master Chef as well, like with the pulled pork. So, look, what can this man not do? Amazing. So that's very interesting to hear how you prepared for the pod stage, and obviously practice against that, and then I'm sure those experiences and reflections carried over. I guess maybe just to harp on a little bit. So it sounds like with the matchup when you had the World Eaters versus Grey Knights and you had opposing opinions, how many times would you go through that cycle of playing that game? Was it 1 to 2 times just to make sure it was correct? And would you play the whole game, or what did that look like?
It would depend on the results, essentially. Like, so for example, at ANZTC, the 6 months prior, I was running the World Eaters, and Lockie Rigg was playing the Grey Knights, and he 20-0'd me. I got no points. I got absolutely demolished by him, right? And then I was like, okay, World Eaters cannot verse Grey Knights. You go to move near them, they teleport away. You go to, it's so hard to deal with, and they do massive damage to you. But since then, we completely changed my list and put 30 Terminators in it, right? So it's a completely different list now. But during the exercise of looking at the numbers, I was like, I was like, I think I can beat the Grey Knights, provided they don't have 6 Dread Knights. If they have a few bits and pieces, but obviously with the experience that we'd had in the past of the Grey Knights, that was questionable. So we racked it up and we played into, I think it might have been Malta's Grey Knights list that had 3 Dread Knights and then like a bunch of Terminators and stuff. So Lockie and I played that game, and I got like a 15-point win, I think it was. And just playing that game that one time gave me the confidence to go, you know what? I actually can beat them, because I can do really interesting things, like you can rapid ingress a Terminator unit and put it within range of 2 Dread Knights, and they can mist away with one, but they can't mist away with both. And then you can go in and charge the other one and kill it. And once you've taken out one of those 3 Dread Knights, the other 2 don't have the DACA to kill a Terminator unit. So as a result, you've got all this interplay. So playing that game just once was enough for us to go, okay, Dean can beat Grey Knights. So we put all my scores up into the Grey Knights. So sometimes it was literally just a one-off. Other times it was like I wanted to play 2 or 3 games into the Votann, because the Votann, depending on how they play it, if they play really cagey and they just put out their little Sagittars and their little small units to screen me, that can be a real problem. But if they go hard, it can be a really good game for me. So we wanted to play a few different times just to see, how it could pan out.
Yeah, cool. That's interesting to hear. So, a good understanding of what that may look like. As you said, sometimes you only need one game and like one strategy, and you can get a vibe for how things will change or look. Sometimes you need a couple of times, and I'm sure as like different lists will change that matchup. So it's very interesting to understand. So I guess from that slumber camp or the slumber party that you had, how was the trip over to Belgium? So I guess the question. Okay, we should be live again. Apologies to that, everyone. First time that's happened in the stream history, but first time for everything. So, so apologies, Dean. So last time I'm leading you off. So we're talking about, I guess, the flight over to Belgium. So any stories or any fun instances? Because I know Joshua Brody was his first time traveling overseas, so I'm sure quite some nerves and interesting, I don't know, maybe experiences.
We did have one of our coaches, Lawrence Gutierrez from the Risky Rollers. He got a bit of a cavity search on the way over there, which was a good laugh for everyone. He maintains that it was not a cavity search and that they just detected he's got some like metal pins in his leg that they wanted to, check out. But we saw the guy snap the glove on when he went in there, so I'm not buying his story at all. And that's
went in real deep, nice and deep in there. Good.
Yep. So we were calling him Lawrence the Breached for the entire trip. So that was fun. But yeah, no, the flight was fine. I mean, it's a long flight, and not everybody's a good flyer. I personally I'm great on planes. I can fall asleep, no worries. So I was asleep for most of the flight. But I think most people, it was relatively smooth.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess like a question about the overall trip as a whole. So obviously WTC is a massive commitment, and like it's obviously you're there to have a good time, but also there's a expectation of obviously representing your country and representing Team Australia. So and something that sort of happened during my college football career was I always got the adage that it's a business trip and not like a pleasure or a holiday. Was that something that you sort of tried to carry over to the team? And I guess what that means is like you're there for a reason and for a business and a purpose. You're not there to be on leisurely holiday, like you are doing something on purpose. So I guess my question is, did you sort of have the same mentality, or was it like a hybrid approach?
We did a very carefully constructed hybrid approach, where basically what we did is a lot of the teams were flying in and landing like a day or two before the event, whereas we made sure that we landed like I think it was 5 days before the actual teams event started. And the idea there was, but in the lead up in the boot camp, it was work, right? Like we were getting it done. Then we fly over, and the last thing I wanted to do is have people work really hard for a week, then have to endure 24 hours worth of travel to then have to go straight back into work mode. So what we did is we made sure that we landed, and we had 3 days before the War Masters event, and that was everybody unpack, unwind, go visit the local sites. We had a drinking competition with Team New Zealand, like just really unwind and have a little bit of a mini holiday in Belgium before we get stuck into the business end of things. But we were pretty like fluid and rapid with our on-off switch. Like there was periods there where we were like, it's serious mode now, but that lasts 2 hours, and then it's back to memes and zinging each other and having fun. And the team were really, really good at that. They knew when it was time to be serious, and they also knew when it was time to decompress. And I think that's really important for this level of competition, because a lot of the times that you see people fail is because they're way too wound up. They're so in their own head. They're so like exhausted from the mental load that you have to carry the whole time. If you don't give people an opportunity to put that mental load down and rest for a minute, they're going to break, especially because it's, most people played 4 to 5 rounds of War Masters followed by 7 rounds of WTC. You're talking minimum 10 games of some of the most intense 40k you'll ever play in your life. And like, I'm sure we've all been to a 3-day event. By the end of the day, you're exhausted. And it's like, imagine doing that 6 days in a row. It's really important for people to be able to get home and just unwind, have a drink, get back to the hotel, get sorted out. So we really made sure that we were really attentive of the team, the players' needs. We made sure that they were comfortable saying, I need a break. I need to go, do this or do that. We wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable doing that, so that there was no instances where we were the angsty, wound up, tired, cranky, stressed players. We never want to be those, because nobody likes versing those people, right? So we didn't want to be those people that other people had to verse. So we made sure that everyone was, well rested and in good spirits. And that, I think, paid dividends. Like, the team performed exceptionally well. And I think at least one of the contributing factors to that is that I wasn't there cracking the whip saying, get back to work, get back to work. I was like, no, let's, there was one night where Jeremy, who's a bit of he's like the team mystic or the team's shaman. And he has this, he's got this theory where every time he has double mains for 2 main meals, he wins the next round, right? So one night he has double mains. Everybody else has to have double desserts. He's just like, he's read the winds of fate, and he's gone, nah, if everybody has double dessert tonight, we'll win tomorrow. So he then goes up to the shops, and we bought every single thing of Ben and Jerry's that they had, brought it all back to the room. He's divvying it up. Everyone's laughing. And it was like every other team would have been angstily doing their prep and making sure that they're thinking about who they're into next round and doing practice games and all that. Meanwhile, we're listening to Jeremy talk about how it's important that, Jordan has to eat the chunky monkey and the cookies and cream, that's important. And it was just so much fun that I think that really did help the team perform at their best.
That's fantastic. It's always good to hear a bit more wisdom and wise words from Mr. Martino himself. And obviously, it is very on brand that the T-Suns player for this year was very Zechian-like in the future and seeing the ways and stuff like that. So I've always heard the story of the double mains.
He was our weaver of fates.
Absolutely. But to cast you back a little bit there, you talked about a Team New Zealand drinking competition. So we got to know those results were not published. So what happened there? Like, who were you representing?
There's some interesting video getting around. There's some definitely interesting video. So Finn, the captain of Team New Zealand, me and him have a little bit of an ongoing competition on drinking. It all started from Men's Masquerade 2 years ago. And I'm not sure if you guys have met Finn or if anyone in the chat knows him, but he's probably twice my body mass. He's a very, very tall man, and he's built and he's big. He's a big lad, right? And Men's Masquerade a couple of years ago, he came up to me and issued me the challenge to go drink for drink. And I was like, sure, why not? Like, you're a Kiwi. How much can you really drink? Like, Aussies will drink you under the table, no worries. And I went drink for drink with him, and we both got absolutely destroyed at that event. We were so drunk. I had like a 3-week hangover from that. So that sort of set this culture between me and him that it was always a drinking competition. So when we rocked up at the hotel and he's at the hotel, me and him just locked eyes and we're like, let's do this. And they had invented this really weird game where you get a deck of playing cards, just a standard deck of playing cards, and everybody that participates gets 2d6. And basically what you do is everybody rolls their 2d6, and then you reveal one playing card. And if your number exceeds that playing card, so say you draw a 6 on the card and you rolled a 7, you do nothing. Yeah. But if you're less than it, you have to take a number of sips from your drink equal to how much you're less than it by, and everybody has to do that. And then you're basically just going around each person drawing cards, and it's the most brutal drinking game because if you're all snake eyes, you had to take an additional drink, and if you rolled box cards, everybody else had to take an additional drink. So the amount of times that like you'd roll snake eyes and 3 other people would roll box cards, and they'd draw like a 10. And it's like, okay, well, 10 versus the 2 that I've rolled, I have to take 8 sips from my drink. I have to take an additional 1 because I rolled snake eyes, and I have to take an additional 3 because they were a box eye. So it's like you just finish your drink and then you immediately have to roll again. It was absolutely
look, who said GW rules weren't complicated? That drinking game rules sounds complicated enough. And
they were 100% making up rules as they went along. Like the game just degenerated into absolute chaos. But that's what we were there for. And yeah, it was me, Ollie, a couple of the coaches. Most of the players were sort of not in business mode, but they were maybe less interested in partaking in destroying their liver. But I couldn't resist a challenge with Finn, so we got stuck into them. The results of that drinking challenge, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think anybody remembers how it ended. It just
no one won.
Yeah, no one wins. No one wins that game.
I mean, allegedly, certain individuals got €100 out of it, but I believe there was some other competition and other.
There was some bets and dares and challenges involved that I won't embarrass anybody with the details of. But yeah, there was definitely some interesting stuff.
Oh, too good. I'm sure they can share those tales at another time or at the next GT that you attend. So,
Walk for the Blood God.